Okay, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the council meeting of the City of Waterloo on Monday, April the 14th. Thank you for your patience. I apologize that council was a little bit late in returning to the chambers, so thank you so much for your patience with us. We are on to item 3, and I just wanted to read our territorial acknowledgement. We would like to begin by acknowledging that the land on which we gather, land on which we're broadcasting from today, is the land traditionally cared for by the Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabe, and Chinootan people. We also acknowledge the enduring presence and deep traditional knowledge and philosophies of the Indigenous people with whom we share this land today. And a moment of reflection. At the beginning of this council meeting, we paused to think about the needs of our community. May we show wisdom and compassion in all our decisions. Someone is dinging. Not sure where that's coming from. I've already asked council about a disclosure of pecuniary interest earlier, and so we've noted that, so I'm going to move on to the approval of minutes. I need a mover for the minutes from March 3rd and March 24th. Councillor Wright, Councillor Hanmer, all in favor. That's carried unanimously. And on to the consent motion. Did anyone want to pull any items from consent? Seeing none, may I have a mover? Moved by Councillor Rowe, seconded by Mayor McCabe, all in favor. And that's carried unanimously. And now we're on to staff reports, item 9A, our 2025 Sustainability and Climate Change Update Report. And we have a presentation by Ina. Welcome.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon. Nope, it doesn't go any higher. All good. Good afternoon. I'm here to speak on the 2025 Sustainability and Climate Change Update Report. As a quick reminder, this is part of a series of annual reports that summarize the city's progress in this space within the past calendar year. So in this case, we're looking at 2024. We would be remiss if we didn't start off by celebrating and reminding people of Earth Day next week. Last year, we had roughly 1,000 volunteers remove over 300 bags of litter and many large items from the city's parks and trails. If you would like to participate this year, I have some information for you up on the screen, and I always encourage everyone to try volunteering. Diving into the report, we'll start off with the strategic highlights. Last year in January, Council approved the city's first corporate climate action plan, which was our corporate mitigation or greenhouse gas reduction plan. The city also saw the addition of a new sustainability officer resource, which has undeniably expanded our ability to implement this work going forward. Staff revamped the previously named environment page to the new Sustainability and Climate Change webpage, which gives a much better showcase of our progress, our goals, and how others in the community can get involved in this work. Council also approved the 2024 Asset Management Plan, which integrates adaptation and mitigation principles throughout. And lastly, there was a review of the Green Building Policy, which incorporated the net zero by 2050 corporate greenhouse gas targets agreed to by Council at the end of 2023. Looking at our corporate plans, there are two plans that broadly govern this work for the city. The first, as I mentioned, is the Corporate Climate Action Plan. This was agreed to in council, approved by Council in January 2024. And since then, well over half of the actions are either in progress or complete, so we are well on track for that. We also have the Corporate Climate Change Adaptation Plan approved in 2019, and over 3/4 of those actions are also in progress or complete. Pulling out a couple of the corporate highlights from last year. The first is the continued electrification of city's facilities, buildings, as well as our fleet. So we added 2 new EV bicycles to the city's fleet, and we constantly work on the electrification of the buildings. We've also introduced a staff greenhouse gas training module, so this is now mandatory for all new staff to take, I believe, beginning in January of 2025. And we've also expanded the cold water ice flooding program. This was a successful pilot that was first run in 2023. Lastly, on this slide, I wanted to make a note of the integration of sustainability in daily operations. This might be small things that are done by staff, but I wanted to bring it up because it shows that we are continuously promoting a culture of sustainability. In addition to electrifying our fleet and our larger vehicles, we have also been electrifying our tools. A big example of this in 2024 was the electrification of our firefighting extraction tools that can be seen on the screen. Those were all traditionally gas tools with a gas tank that had to come with them, and they have now all been made electric. Keeping on with the theme of fire rescue services, in 2024, the entire Fire Rescue Services Division also participated in a Carbon Cleanse Challenge. It is a friendly workplace sustainability challenge, and I just wanted to do a big shout out to Fire Prevention Services, which was the team that won, and also a huge thank you in general to them to the entire division for testing this out and being so lovely about it. Lastly, on the corporate highlights side, I wanted to point out that City of Waterloo was featured in 2 Asset Management Ontario case studies about asset management, climate change, our strategic perspective, and as well as our decision making. And so it's always fantastic to see the city being recognized by peers in this space. Moving on to the community planning side, City of Waterloo is part of Transform Waterloo Region, which is a region-wide community greenhouse gas mitigation or reduction plan. The city is responsible for 31 actions of that plan, and we are about 2/3 of those actions are either in progress or complete as of the end of 2024. If anyone would like to see more in-depth analysis on the actions and their status, there is a public dashboard. I have it linked right there, Transform Waterloo Region dashboard that has more information on not only what we're doing, but what also our community partners are doing. Looking at the broader context of community planning, sustainability was significantly further integrated into the official plan review phase 1 last year. Staff have also been providing input into the development of the high performance development standards, and sustainability is being integrated into the 2025 University East Affordable Housing Planning Project. 2024 was a big year for active transit. The city hosted the 15th annual Ontario Bike Summit, 15 years after it hosted the inaugural Bike Summit in 2009. The City of Waterloo was also recognized as the second most walked city in Ontario after Toronto by the Transportation Toronto survey released by the Ministry of Transportation. 1 in 5 trips are taken by walking in Toronto, and 1 in 6 trips are taken by walking in Waterloo. So that's quite impressive. And those results also show that since 2016, Waterloo residents have started driving slightly less and started cycling and walking slightly more. So they're starting to see shifts in those modes of transit. Lastly, I wanted to note the continued expansion of our active transportation network. In 2024, over 1,000 meters of new sidewalk, new multi-use trail, and new off-road trail was added, and over 2,000 meters of off-road trail and multi-use path trail was resurfaced. Moving on from community planning to community planting, over 1,000 trees were planted by our city forestry staff in 2024, and 2 new community gardens were installed at Dunvegan and Gatestone Parks. Between our Partners in Parks program and our Pollinator Working Group, volunteers and city staff mulched, weeded, planted, educated, engaged, and grew our community. I really can't do this work any justice during this short presentation, so I do highly recommend that everyone check out our Community Programs and Parks webpage that has a full overview of all the amazing work that the volunteers and staff do in this space. And last year, we continued to grow and strengthen our community collaborations in this space as well. We hosted 2 community conversations, one on environmental sustainability and climate action, and one on infrastructure and transportation, as well as attended a neighborhood summit that was focused on sustainability. We continue to strengthen our research partnerships with the post-secondaries and continue to value and seek input from our Sustainability Advisory Committee. We also continue to appreciate and strengthen the really ongoing partnerships with all of the organizations that you see on the screen. These partnerships are essential to our progress, and this work is both bettered and amplified because of all these relationships. Moving on to a bit of a more local scale, I want to just point out some examples of in the community action. The Waterloo Public Library last year started its seed library program and gave out over 9,500 seeds to the community. If you had the chance to go to Lumen last year, you might have had a chance to hug a tree and see it light up as part of the Tree Love exhibit by Zem. And then lastly, the Mary Allen Neighborhood Association was noticing that they were having a bit of trouble hosting summer events because it was so hot, so they decided to pivot and host a Beat the Heat event that was water-based and had mist tents and water games and things like that. And I just think it's a fantastic example of how municipalities and local communities can work together to enable this kind of climate adaptation. Moving on to the numbers themselves, looking back 2 years for our corporate numbers, in 2023, we had a 4.5% increase in our corporate greenhouse gases as compared to 2022. I originally incorrectly assumed that this increase was due to the addition of the Community Pavilion building that was opened at the end of 2022 and had a full year of operation in 2023. However, that building is actually incredibly efficient, and the data indicates that the reason for the increase was actually because we were coming out of COVID still. So if you look at the 2020, 2021 numbers, there's quite a dip because a lot of city operations were closed, and that was returning to normal in 2023. Looking at the longer term trends for the 2023 data, looking at the longer term trends, you can see the 2023 data actually continues along this path of reducing our corporate greenhouse gas emissions over the last decade and a half. On the community side, the last data we have is the 2022 inventory that was presented to council last year. The data featured on the screen right now is for the entire region of Waterloo and shows that since 2010 to 2022, there has been a 12% decrease in the amount of community emissions. I'll end off this presentation by doing a bit of a look into the future. In the next year or so, staff are looking to refresh the Corporate Climate Change Adaptation Plan for fall 2025. My apologies, it's this summer. To continue to implement the CORCAP, Corporate Climate Change Adaptation Plan, and Transform Waterloo Region plans, and continue to decarbonize city facilities and fleet. And lastly, we wanted to make a point that staff are aware that some of the changing global landscapes that we're seeing may negatively impact this work or may present new opportunities, and we are keeping an eye on that broader context and very committed to being flexible and as prepared as we can to ensure that we keep on the strong progress that we've had already. Thank you very much, and I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you so much, and right on time. Good job. Questions, Council?
Thank you. Through you, Chair. Thanks again for this very comprehensive report. It was really interesting to read through it. And acknowledging that this data is, as you said, we have a 2-year gap on it. We have 5 years left to 2030, and I know you're feeling this. So I want to ask you about the big challenges, and the report does go into some detail about the challenges. The 2 big buckets being electrifying our facilities and getting to our fleet vehicles to reduce those emissions. Those are huge buckets. So I want to acknowledge that as being a huge part of that 20% that we need to close on. But I also want to acknowledge that in most of these efforts, whether it's the Sustainable Development Goals or other frameworks that you're trying to close the gap on, the last 5 to 10% can be extremely stubborn, and that's where you can't rely on any kind of business as usual approaches. You need to be thinking in a very transformative way, and then that has a catalytic effect going forward as you tackle the next 2 decades. So I'm just wondering, in this short period of time, so we have like a 1.5 years left of this term of council, we'll have 1 more term of council before 2030. What are the big things that you need support on?
Thank you. Through the chair to the councillor. I'd actually like to call Scott and Kevin up, that would be you two, just to answer a bit on the more the facility side. When it comes to looking at the transportation side, one of the challenges that we're looking at that is difficult for us to surmount as a municipality is just the lack of supply of existing vehicles that can be, I believe the word is, that can be operationalized the way we want. So they're doing a great job at replacing them as they come up, but some of them just don't exist, and obviously the money is there. I think anyone who gets asked that question would say we'd love more resources and more staff time. But one of the big things is really having a more holistic approach to this work. So it is not necessarily, it's about potentially about recognizing what we as a municipality can do and where we thrive. It's a close relationship with the people and municipal bylaws and things like that, but also recognizing where sometimes that problem or the challenges need to be addressed at a provincial or a federal scale, and that's where advocacy comes in on that piece. As the city of Waterloo, for example, we cannot decide the price of EV cars necessarily, and we cannot, that's not at our scale, but we can advocate it for it at different levels of government. Same thing with all the other standards and everything like that. In terms of the building, where as you mentioned, a really large chunk of our emissions are, I would like to invite FDMS up. I think they might be able to give you a little bit more of a concrete answer than I can.
Thanks, Anna, and through Chair Freeman and Councillor Wright. So yeah, really good question. Obviously, facilities are going to be a key in terms of hitting our 2030 target. And what I can say is that over the last number of years, staff and council have done a lot of really excellent planning. So what I can say is we absolutely know the pathway to 2030 in terms of facilities. A lot of the work is basically around electrification, specifically of our recreation centers. So those are our highest emitting facilities, ice rinks, pools, that sort of thing. So we know what we need to do. Staff have been aggressively pursuing a number of different grant opportunities over the last number of years, and we're optimistic with support of our federal and provincial counterparts that with some of those dollars that will help enable this work. So I think just to give council some confidence, staff know exactly what we need to do to hit that number, and it really is a matter of execution at this point. So with projects like Elmer McCormick Sportsplex, which will be coming to council shortly, those are the examples of projects that we need to execute on, and we are starting to execute on those projects to hit that target. But certainly Rim Park needs to be electrified, and that will be a big initiative in order for us to hit our 2030 target as well.
Thank you. Other questions, council? Seeing none, I know we have a delegate, but, Mayor McCabe?
Thank you. I was just waiting in case there were others. And thank you for the report. I think it's really excellent, and I appreciate all the work that staff across all the divisions and departments are doing on this really critical work. I'm just wondering, in addition to some of the stuff that you've outlined that we're doing and some of the things that we have planned to do, are there examples that you know of that are from other municipalities, whether they're in Ontario or Canada or around the world, that are, something that we should be thinking about as well, sort of something really different or ambitious or just different that we're really, that maybe you're kind of like on your wish list, but you think it's maybe a step too far for us, or it's from another country? I don't know. Is there something like that that you think we should also be thinking? Because technologies in these fields keeps changing. So do you see something on the horizon, or are you aware of something that we should also be adding to a plan like this?
Thank you, through the chair to the mayor. That is an excellent and dangerous question, Mayor McCabe. I'm sure everyone would have a different answer. I think while there are certainly specific examples of things I would be happy to talk about later, one of the biggest lessons learned in the last couple years is that there is so much fantastic stuff already being done throughout the country, throughout the world, and one of the benefits of having things like this report, things like fantastic staff that we have, is this continuous and coordinated effort and coordinated institutional history of this work, which really allows us to have those relationships and bring that knowledge in-house, so we don't have to redo efforts that everyone else has already done. We don't have to start new every single year with different departments. I think is the benefit of our team. It's the benefit of having a second position with us as well, is that we have the staff time to really bring in all this information that's done. It isn't necessarily reinventing the wheel at this point. It is seeing what worked for you, what didn't work for you, what might work here, and bringing it in. I think that's really where we're going to see a lot of efficiencies happen in the future, and we've already started to see them. And it's fantastic. I think also I want to say a huge shout out to staff who, it happens very frequently, a great idea comes and I go and I say, can we do this here? And they either say yes or no or yes but, and that's what we're really starting to bring in. So I wouldn't necessarily say there is one magic bullet that I would recommend to council at this moment, but I think that not to sound too cheesy, but continuing to collaborate and learn from others and constantly reaching out and bringing it in and attacking the problem from 1,000 different sides in the way that only a municipality of this size or only a municipality in general can is one of the best ways that we can go forward.
Thank you for that. And just on the issue of collaboration and learning from others, are we connected to the Intact Center? And we're like leaning on them for some of the research they've done, because they're a local resource as well?
Yeah, absolutely. We frequently talk to them and send them examples, and we've worked on a lot of their work as well, especially in the adaptation space.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Thanks very much for the work that you're doing in this.
Yeah.
It's really important.
Thank you very much. And we do have a delegation, so. Welcome, Kay. And can I just have you say your name and municipality? That's great. You can lower that if you'd like. Okay.
I live in the city of Waterloo, and I'm very happy to be here and to get to comment on this report. And I just found a lot to like in this report. I feel like the city of Waterloo, as you know, I work with Green WR and the high performance development standards, and I just feel like there's so many things that we can share with other municipalities. But I like that there's the cross-department staff involvement in the environmental sustainability team, because it's, as you know, we just saw the answers to the questions. It's not one person can do it all. I like that there's collaboration with University of Waterloo and Laurier and Conestoga on sustainability initiatives and problem solving. I was really happy to see that involved in this pilot project on carbon accounting and possible future carbon budgeting activities, which not an easy topic, but nice to see we're starting to learn about that. I was happy to see about the green building policy being updated so that new construction would be zero carbon rather than just zero carbon ready. And again, this relates to discussions we keep having in the Green WR team. And I've been happy to see the integration of climate goals into the official plan and other planning tools that have come to council. And happy to see the continued advocacy to the province, because we do need good policies to work within, and we don't have them. And I'm really happy to see this, the part about education, because it's so important. Because again, that's what we're finding. I mean, even among ourselves, but when you start to realize you have to talk to building officials and you have to talk to the water management people and so this creation of this GHG learning module. And also, I was happy to see that you're working on a partnership with Innova and Waterloo Region Community Energy to better understand the city's energy systems. So, because when you get down into looking at the high performance development standards, and you're like me, or you, or anybody else trying to understand what does all this mean, you really do have to have this shared knowledge base and this shared community that can help you understand this. I mean, I was astounded when I actually sat down to try and read these high-performance development standards. I mean, a group I've been working with for 2 years, and I couldn't understand it at all, you know? So that's why I think the education part is so important, and also the outreach for the community is really important. And I'm happy to see, at least I hope you adopt the recommendation that you continue your commitment to reducing community greenhouse gas emissions by 50%. But the community education is really important, and I hope we can work together to try and make some of these complicated planning goals understandable to ordinary people. But the community education that's happened so far has been really positive in my respect, because getting invited to the neighborhood summit with people from other neighborhoods has inspired somebody from the Mary Allen neighborhood to offer a Jane's Walk on your neighbor's climate solutions, pointing out ordinary houses, around the neighborhood where they've implemented these things. So it's people we can talk to. It makes it accessible in a way, no matter how many webinars you go to, and understand the basics of switching off of natural gas or fossil gas to air source heat pump. It's nice to have somebody who's actually done it. So I think there's hope. And on that respect, once again, I wanted to take this opportunity, it's the real reason I delegated, was to encourage you to come out to that Jane's Walk and look for other ones too, because there's a number of interesting Jane's Walks coming up, like there's one on daylighting streams in Kitchener and other things related to the overall goals of this and certainly to sustainability. So thanks for giving me an excuse to come in.
Thank you so much, Kay. Really appreciate the time that you took to go through the report and the overview that you provided. It's really helpful. Thank you.
Well, it's helpful to me to see it, and truly, I feel it's so encouraging to think that, because I know there are other municipalities like Woolwich is starting to do it, and Wellesley and so on, to think there is this, and that you have developed these collaborations with other institutions, and so it's, I know there's stuff that's happening at Waterloo Region Community Energy, but it's nice to see it at the municipal staff level too. So thank you.
Any questions for Kay?
Just a quick comment, no, not a question. Just when you were going through this saying you like this, you like that, you like so many things, I was kind of waiting for a but, because I know when there's when you give great attention to detail and you're not afraid to tell us where there are things that you think we need to improve. And we know there's a lot more work to do as Anna in the report outlined, but it's really validating, I think, of staff's work and the direction overall, to have someone like you generally saying, we are on the right track. There's, of course, things to do, but really appreciate the detail and what you brought here. So thanks, Kay.
Well, I must admit, I shared this with the Green WR people, and they thought you weren't getting off natural gas as fast as you could. So, so, but I thought,
it's
you're
an
doing.
important point. I mean, natural gas is imported from our natural gas is imported from the U.S. So it's sort of an ever more increasingly important reason to the climate issues as well as some of the geopolitical issues. It's a really good point.
Right, and you pointed that out in the report. And you also did a really great summary of future trends or future projections for climate. That's going to be really useful to us Green WR when we're thinking about which performance development standards are really going to reduce our emissions, So really great work, and thank you.
Thanks again. It's amazing you got the mayor to say the word natural gas. She usually refers to it as not natural and that it's just gas. But anyways, with that being said, we have a recommendation. Council, is there a mover for that recommendation? Moved by Mayor McCabe, seconded by Councillor Bodley. All those in favor? That's carried unanimously. We're on to the culture plan and benchmarking report, and we have a presentation from Ms. Barton. Welcome.
A bit shorter. Good afternoon. My name is Lakin Barton, and I'm the Cultural Planning Specialist here at the City of Waterloo. And I'll be giving you a high-level overview of some of the notable successes in 2024 from the Culture Plan. The Culture Plan report card, which you should have received a copy of, and the Culture Plan benchmarking report are produced each year to capture the work undertaken by the arts and creative industry staff, which is guided by the Waterloo Culture Plan, a catalyst for culture in 2014 to 2024. This final report card marks the conclusion of the 2014 to 2024 Culture Plan. And throughout the past decade, this report has played a key role in evaluating the plan's impact by reviewing progresses, successes, and challenges. As the city transitions to a new phase of cultural planning, this report and this final report reflects on the foundation built on and the opportunities ahead. So I want to start first with what do we mean by culture? When we use the word culture with concerns with the work that we do, we're using the following definition. So it means the creative artistic activity and the goods and services produced by it and the preservation of heritage. And that's Stats Canada's definition. And what is the City of Waterloo's catalytic role in culture? The work that has been done over the past 10 years is guided by the Waterloo Culture Plan, and the city plays a vital role by championing the community's vision, providing funding or in-kind support and space, networking and relationship building, collaboration with and across sectors, being a conduit for information, breaking down barriers to cultural activities and engagement, identifying opportunities, bringing ideas and people and resources, encouraging creativity and creative expression, linking community development and economic development and quality of life, collaboration, and celebrating local accomplishments. So our first goal in the culture plan was building capacity through various means of investment. This past year in 2024, funding leveraged by arts and creative industries staff to support artists had a significant increase, and we saw over $140,000 in funds come through. We were able to apply for other level of government funding and corporate sponsorship to fund local artists for both the July 1st Community Picnic and Lumen. We also hired more artists overall for our overall programming and events, and we continue to mentor community arts and creative industries organizations to help build capacity to aid in their work in the Waterloo community. If you're following along in the book, in the report card booklet, I will note that the culture plan is interdepartmental plan. So I won't be speaking to goal number 2, which is heritage. Staff from the museum and other departments will be coming to council to provide their updates on that. So we're gonna jump ahead to animation, which is goal 3, is to enliven streets, neighborhoods, and public green spaces. Some notable highlights from 2024 include the increase in Waterloo Public Square third-party bookings, up 25%, as well as attendance at the Visitor Information Center, up 71%. The growth of the Visitor Center continues beyond this number. It's an outstanding surge in programming and event activity, with a remarkable increase, almost doubling event attendance numbers from 2023. This growth is directly attributed to the strategic efforts of the Arts and Creative Industries Department, which has expanded venue access during the off-season and fostered key partnerships with organizations like the KW Writers Alliance, Pinch Arts, and Pat the Dog Theatre Company to enhance community programming. As a result, the venue is now in high demand, averaging at minimum 4 more bookings a week and throughout the year for diverse uses, including rehearsals, classes, performances, and community art projects. This success underscores the city's commitment to maximizing cultural spaces, supporting local artists, and enriching the community's access to arts and culture. Here's a little snippet of what people have had to say they appreciate about this current space, is that it feels like a safe and welcoming environment, that it's accessible in terms of physical access, affordability, and proximity to public transit. There's an ease of booking, which makes it simple for artists to use the space without jumping through too many hoops. And it's clearly coded as an art space, that people recognize it as a space that supports and celebrates creativity, which reinforces its purpose and builds community connection. Currently, the Visitor Center and the Waterloo Public Square are spaces that are offered to free for community nonprofits. Continuing into engagement. Goal 4 looks to enhance engagement of community diversity to build stronger shared sense of belonging. 2024 saw more programs being offered, continued large event attendance, and an uptake in free and outdoor programming. One of the biggest events in 2024 was Lumen, I've seen in the previous presentation with the Hug a Tree. Using the economic impact modeling, the conservative estimate economic impact of Lumen combined with the extended offerings beyond the one night total over $9 million. Awareness is goal 5. It's about expanding community awareness and appreciation of the arts. Our online presence, including social media, continues to connect with the people of Waterloo. This year, Arts and Creative Industries brand called Create Waterloo saw an increase of 19% in followers. And thanks to the ongoing efforts of staff, the Create Waterloo brand has become a strong and recognizable identity, serving as a trusted source for promoting community events and artist opportunities across the region. Collaboration, we continue to collaborate with many different organizations, businesses, and levels of government. We've had many collaborations over the 2024, but notable includes Age of Union, Underdog Dance Studio, the Creative City Network of Canada, and Festival and Events Ontario. Before I jump into questions, I just wanted to do a little bit of a look back, as this is the last report of the report card for this culture plan, and it's kind of exciting to see that the growth that we've done. There's so many stats to highlight and so many different stories, and this is just a snapshot. So since 2016, Waterloo Public Square bookings have increased over 170%. City delivered event attendance has increased over 1,400%. And temporary public art installations increased over 800%. Again, these are such a small snapshot of what we've all accomplished. Through culture plan actions, many other city plans and strategies were developed and fostered, such as the neighborhood strategy, the medium strategy, and the prioritization of diversity, equity, and inclusion at the corporate level. Overall, the execution of the plan was highly successful, with an implementation rate of 91%. This plan represented a significant and ambitious undertaking, and the remarkable achievements over the past decade stand as a testament to the city's dedication to cultural growth and community engagement. The progress made should be celebrated as a milestone in strengthening Waterloo's vibrant arts and culture and creative industries landscape. Building on the progress, the next phase will focus on a more targeted and action-oriented arts strategy. This strategy, informed by community consultation over the past 2 years and developed alongside the economic development strategy, will refine and expand support for artists, organizations, and creative industries. Insights from the past decade, along with the recent regional consultations, will shape updated, actionable approaches that align with emerging priorities and community needs. Through these discussions and consultations, 4 key areas of focus have emerged: distribution of funds and grants, access to physical spaces, promotion and awareness of arts and culture, and then equity and diversity and representation and support. These priorities will inform Waterloo's upcoming arts strategy, aligning with the regional efforts while addressing the city's unique needs. And this plan will come to council for approval by the end of 2025. Thank you for your time, and any questions?
Yep, thank you for your presentation. So questions, Councillor Wright?
Thank you. Through you, Chair. It's always so encouraging to see the full breadth of something like this through the time lens. 10 years is a really long time for a strategy and plan, and it was obviously disrupted by the pandemic years. You mentioned that about 91% or 91 actions were implemented. Is there anything that you want to speak to that didn't happen that you would want to roll over into a next phase?
Through you, Chair, to Councillor. Yes, there was a few items that weren't able to be accomplished. One, there were longer-term goals. There were no select KPIs that could be accomplished, and that was kind of a fault of a 10-year plan in that way. That 10 years is a very long time. The upcoming art strategy will not be over a 10-year span. We're looking at much less, under 5. And we'll be looking at what was accomplished and what wasn't, or what we can even improve upon going forward. I don't have a specific one that we'll be addressing unless, but yeah, a lot of it was because it was interdepartmental. There was only certain elements that could be controlled or could be monitored. And then again, there was a lot more broader, how do you say, yes, we've accomplished? The work is never done in that capacity. Would Estera like to?
Through the chair to Councillor Wright. As Lakin mentioned, some of the objectives or recommendations, specific recommendations that weren't accomplished also reflect how much the community changed over a 10-year period. There were recommendations, for example, like activating vacant spaces in the uptown. We don't have a surplus of vacant spaces in the uptown to activate. That was a real change that happened from the time the plan was written in 2013 to today. But there are certainly some objectives and recommendations like diversifying supports for the sector that we will be carrying over into the next art strategy, because those needs are still being very clearly identified by the community.
So just as a follow-up to that, I mean, you spoken specifically to some of the challenges that were faced in across the arts community. I think it's important to highlight maybe where that flexibility came to fruition from your team. Like what sorts of things did you move into in order to respond to those pandemic conditions? Because there were a lot of measures that sort of came together in a very quick way, and I know you're trying to continue to work with those changes and adapt to the situation. Maybe you could speak to that just briefly.
Yeah, through you, Chair, to Councillor. Yeah, there's a lot of pivoting. I mean, everyone's favorite word in the pandemic. We accessed a lot of doing pop-up micro spaces. We also started a micro grant opportunity with Pet the Dog, which funded individual artists to support that growth. We've revitalized the Visitor Information Center for smaller gatherings. We moved a lot of our programming online and facilitated other organizations to how to do online through the pandemic. You can see through the tracking of the report cards, through the different years, you can see the differences of how we structured, what the difficulties that each arts organization faced. Lots of arts organizations are still facing the results of the COVID-19 pandemic and the lack of funding that to get back. Moving online wasn't the most financially strong opportunity. So we're trying to fund with the arts grant program that we funded, what we started last year and have had 2 successful years of running, still facilitating those gaps. And then the COVID-19 pandemic arts organizational grants. Sarah, do you want to jump in?
And just one last question. So over the period of this arts and culture plan, the sort of terminology around culture has become tighter and tighter, and it's now evolved into arts and creative industries. And so I'm just wondering if you could speak to that evolution and where we find ourselves now.
Through you, Chair. Definitely. So the term culture has been intentionally kind of removed from our lexicon in that way due to the broad and kind of confusing nature. So without a shared definition like the one I shared earlier in the presentation, it can lead to a lot of misinterpretation ranging from community identity to recreation and beyond. So when our division uses the term, we use the StatsCan definition, but that without leading that with every conversation, it can get a little bit murky. So that we wanted to specifically identify that we're talking about creative industries and arts in that space. So we're not stepping away from how our division defines culture. We're just making that definition a little bit more stronger from the opposite end, if that kind of, does that answer your question?
Sure. Through you, Chair, to Councillor Wright. I think the other important thing to consider, and that was one of the challenges with the duration of this plan, was when the plan was first developed in 2013, our section was actually part of community services. And then we shifted to economic development shortly after the plan was approved. So the plan was written through a community services lens, and we have been trying to implement it through an economic development lens. That said, I think there have been a lot of cross-corporate initiatives that have been undertaken that were supported by the culture plan or initiated by the culture plan. So we have things like the neighborhood strategy, and we have the museum strategy. The culture plan recommended the development of a ready team. So I think, you know, we have done our part in implementing parts of it, but as Lakin mentioned, parts of that plan were the responsibility of other departments in the city. So I think that was part of how we adapted to that sort of broader definition or understanding of arts and culture as it was conceived of in 2013.
Thanks for that. That's all I have.
Thank you. Councillor Rowe?
Thank you. Through you, Chair. I have several questions, if I may have the opportunity to ask them. Thank you so much for the report. It's always really encouraging to see the success of the arts in the city. I do have some questions. Specifically, I just wanted to, hold on one second. Refer to the report where it states, with the conclusion of Waterloo's culture plan, the next phase will focus on a more targeted and action-oriented art strategy. So what I'm wondering was, and taking into consideration what you're saying, Estero, about different divisions, Arts and Culture Festival and Events was inactive for about a decade. So what I'm wondering is, how was the decision made to direct the city's culture plan away from culture and focusing on arts? Like, who was part of that conversation?
So through you, Chair, to Councillor Rowe, that was a staff decision, and it was also informed by extensive community consultation. So the art sector is not a homogeneous group. It is a very diverse group of communities within our community. And what we heard very clearly from the sector was we really needed to focus in on the needs of that sector. For decades, arts has been lumped in with lots of other kinds of community development. And what the artists have been telling us is that we really need to pay attention to their needs. Otherwise, they're not going to be here to support that other community development and all of the other benefits that we get from the work that the sector does.
Okay, just following up on that. So what I'm hearing is, and what I'm seeing is, the arts community was consulted, but was the multicultural community consulted?
So through you, Chair, through the Environics consultation that was done in 2023 in collaboration with other regional municipalities, there was an Engage platform that was online. So we did do broader community engagement. And again, there are representatives of those broader cultural communities that are represented within the arts sector. So they're not mutually exclusive things. And as Lakin mentioned, some of the priorities that have been identified by the arts sector are things about eliminating barriers to programming and support, increasing representation in decision-making processes. So I think there are a lot of crossovers with those things, but again, what we're hearing from the sector that we're representing as part of economic development and in alignment with the economic development strategy that's being developed, we felt that this was the direction that we really needed to go for this next stage. Again, I think once this plan is implemented, as Lakin mentioned, we are looking at this being less than 5 years. I think there is certainly room to reevaluate and look at what those broader community needs are and work with other departments within the city to look at whether or not a larger, more diverse plan makes sense for the city. But that's not necessarily something that we would lead independently. I think that's something that would need to be done collaboratively with other departments.
Okay, so that sort of touches on my next question, which I think for me, what I struggle with is the shift, and like there seems to me to be a widening gap for culture, festivals and events, funding, et cetera, with the grant process was shifted in 2013, which then our cultural events and festivals didn't really have a home anymore, and the name has changed to Arts and Creative. So my question is, like, sort of where does culture belong? Like, what's the progression plan? Because it was there, and so where does it go now?
So through you, Chair, I would argue that culture sits in a lot of different places. It's certainly something that's being addressed as part of the sport, rec, and leisure strategy that Community Services is developing now, and that interior community space master plan or strategy that was developed. It ties in with the work that our Ready team is doing. So I think it's broader than just the work that we do. Our team does continue to support a diversity of festivals and events. We have had 80 requests for bookings this year in Public Square. And as Lakin mentioned, Public Square and the Visitor Center are the only two city facilities that are offered free of charge for not-for-profits. So there are lots of ways we still do mentorship of a lot of community groups. There are lots of different ways that other types of events and festivals are still being supported. Just not through the specific arts grant program.
Okay, I'm not sure if anyone else has any more questions. I do have a comment, and then we can move on.
I don't see any other questions, so go ahead with your comments.
I think that for me, like I said, there's a gap here, and funding for festivals and events went through arts and culture festivals and events, Arts and Creative now. So I'm not comfortable with streamlining or narrowing the focus of the culture plan into an arts only, because I feel like it just continues to widen that gap without us having anything in place. So I think what I'm looking at is like, what's the progression from where we were? So where are we going next, and who's involved in that conversation? And that, though, I can also refer to staff.
Yeah. Did you want to respond to that?
So just quickly, through you, Chair, to Councillor Rowe, in the next couple of weeks, next month, we will be bringing forward a report on the arts grant this year. And I think that Council will be surprised at the diversity of organizations that are being funded through that program. We have been able to fund far more organizations this year because of the increase in funding, because we were able to reallocate money from other parts of our budget. So I think, there's certainly an opportunity to reevaluate after that, but I think I wouldn't want to speak to who's not represented until council has a better idea of who is being supported.
Yes, because I see, for me, there's a lack of voices here, of cultural groups. So do you want me to go?
Okay, so I think we have a few paths forward. It sounds to me like council would like some more information on the plan for the next 4 to 5 years so that we have a better understanding of the things that staff saw that informed their decision-making related to the plan. So the recommendations before us is that council continue to champion local arts and creative industry development, but it's not related specifically to the fact that you put the conclusion in the report that says Waterloo's culture plan, a catalyst for culture. The next phase will focus on more targeted and action-oriented art strategy. So it sounds to me like council would like to get more information about this targeted and action-oriented arts strategy. I'd like to suggest that the recommendations before us probably don't impede the ability to get that information and to provide different direction on that strategy. So I think that if I understand correctly, Councillor Rowe, would it make sense to provide direction, move a motion to provide direction to staff to come back with the focus, the targeted and action-oriented arts strategy so that we can have an opportunity to better understand whether we agree with the gap that's been outlined here, or whether we agree with the analysis that's been done as it relates to the art strategy, and maybe you can help unpack how culture does actually fit into all of these pieces, because it's not clear in the language that's here right now. I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but I think the motion would be to ask staff to return to council with the action-oriented art strategy for council's review and comment, and maybe changes.
Yes, I think so, and I'm also wondering if the Office of the CAO can be involved in that, just to have that conversation about the culture plan and how it's evolving.
Okay.
So we don't lose it.
And more broadly, where it fits across the city.
Yes.
Okay. I'm gonna ask you to put that on the table, and then maybe we can have a bit of a council conversation about that. Okay, so it's seconded by Councillor Vasek. So I think at this point, what we're trying to do, council, is have a conversation about whether we agree with asking staff for this additional information. I support the motion. I think it's worthwhile for us to see this and to better understand where culture fits in. Did council have other comments they wanted to make around this? Yeah, Councillor Vasek.
Thanks through you, Chair, and thanks, Mary Lou, for bringing up this conversation and for all of your responses. Very helpful. I think that council's concern may be or could be that we approved something that sort of left some cultural groups out that didn't fit within arts and creative industries, or arts and culture in the way that culture is defined by Stats Canada's creative industries. And so there's some confusion about that language. And of course, there's lots of diversity, as you noted, within the arts and creative industries community, so it's not that there's not representation or different cultural groups that are being supported by the city, but there's an obvious arts focus, I guess, or from what our lens is around that. So I guess what I'm curious about is if we have staff come back with an action-oriented art strategy for review, I'm still not sure if that's going to identify a gap in support for cultural groups that don't have a Western arts focus.
Yeah.
So how do we tend to that?
So I guess I was just using their language, I guess, from the piece. I see that Justin's waving his hands here. Would you like to add some commentary, please? That was not intentional to prevent your mic from working, but maybe you can use the other mic. They were all turned on at once. So try it one more time.
So I think we will learn a lot. I know that there was some gaps that were identified through the process last year. I think we will learn a lot. Council will learn a lot from the report that will be coming on the grants from this year. The coverage is a lot broader than it was last year. So I think there will be fewer concerns about gaps. In terms of our department, we have not changed what we're doing. The Arts and Creative Industries team has not changed what we're doing. It's just, it's been basically a slight rebrand that has created some good positive outcomes in some others and some confusion in some other areas. And I'd say one really good example of kind of why we did this and the benefit achieved from making the change was we used to have the advisory committee on culture, and so recruitment would come through based on, people read the details, but really the name is important. And we found we were getting a group of folks in some cases that were looking to provide input much broader than what really our team was working towards. And so the rebrand for this current committee to the Creative Sector Advisory Committee has led to a much more productive, targeted group of folks. And it's been a very productive committee this time around. So that little change, even though nothing has really changed in terms of what we do, has really created sort of a beneficial change for our team in terms of engaging with the community and overall productivity. So I think I would almost suggest maybe, I know there's maybe some recommendations that might be made here that weren't part of kind of what we had brought forward. But I'm wondering if it's possible to just kind of pause this conversation until after we've brought forward the next report on the arts grants. Thank you, and then I think that will sort of better inform sort of council's understanding on things in terms of where we're at.
Thank you for that. I know that Councillor Vasic has something, but I'm just going to chime in too, if I might. I think the challenge is that there's actually language in this report that's been brought to us that says the next phase will focus on a more targeted and action-oriented arts strategy. And so the way that language is played out, it suggests that there isn't a place for culture in there. And so what we're seeking, at least what I understand we're seeking, is for someone to unpack that language for council so that we agree that nothing's changed. So that we agree with your assessment that nothing's changed because it matters to us. And I think that's essentially what we're asking for here. Now, if we need to change and take the word art out of this piece to see and just say that staff return to council with the action-oriented strategy for, I would say, review and comment, I think that would give that would help us to get to the same place that you and your staff have gotten to on this piece. And I'm not trying to put words in people's mouths, but that's kind of what I'm hearing. And so, and I'll turn it over to Councillor Vasic. I know you wanted to add something.
No, thanks. That was part of it, actually, through you, Chair. So is about defining culture, making sure council has a really clear understanding of culture, because as you put up there, culture by StatsCan does include creative industries, but as you mentioned, I was on Arts and Culture Advisory last council term, and that's exactly right what happened. And so now we have this big gap of folks who thought they belonged to that group, and they don't, and we don't have a place for it. And so my only other follow-up is to say, which I think is what Councillor Rowe is saying, is who are those people? And so you can bring back the action-oriented strategy for sure. That's great. This is amazing. So thanks, Councillor Rowe. At the same time, is what you're also bringing back not just who is included, but who is excluded. Because someone said something before about how by showing us who's included, we'll see that many more people than we think are included. And I believe that that's going to be true for sure. But I'm also wanting, like Councillor Rowe, for there to be some work with the CAO's office around who is also excluded. So I don't know if that's just, it's silly to ask for a list, but I guess that's kind of what I'm asking, you know, for who's been excluded in the community through this process of changing to arts and creative industries, and being really explicit about how that isn't really what ACC was. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm seeing some agreement on behalf of Councillor Rowe. Is there any other commentary on these three recommendations? I think we've had a generative conversation here that probably helps to outline, you know, how people are feeling here. So with that being said, do I have a mover of these three motions? Moved by Councillor Rowe, seconded by Councillor Vasek. All those in favor? Okay, great. That's carried unanimously. Thank you so much. And now we're moving on to item C, which is the 2024 tax adjustments. We don't have a presentation on this, but staff are certainly here to answer any questions council might have. Moved by Councillor Bodley, seconded by Councillor Hanmer. All in favor? And that's carried unanimously. Thank you. All right, we're moving on to the 2025 Business Improvement Area Levy, and we do have a delegation by Jayas. Welcome. Jayas, sorry. My apologies. Names are important, so I apologize.
That is okay. That happens to me once a day, so I'm used to it by now. Thank you, councillors, delegates, and my team who gets everything done for me. I appreciate everybody being here. So we have a quick presentation. I know I have 10 minutes. I'm going to try not to go over time. So it is the Uptown BIA's update for all of the great things we've done and we are looking to do next year as well. So our Uptown vision and strategy is to represent our members and work with the City of Waterloo and the community to make Uptown a vibrant place on a regular basis. So our strategic pillars that guide us through this are Uptown identity, Uptown leadership, Uptown growth, and strong voice for Uptown. So this is coming to an end at the end of 2025. Myself as the ED with my team, with our board of directors, we are going to start working on our next strategy, which is going to be for 4 years term. So with our Uptown identity, we are going to focus on certain areas, milestone celebrations, attracting new businesses, creating third spaces for visitors to gather on a regular basis. So as you see the slide here, there were 8 businesses that celebrated milestones. So Sweet and Savory Pie, 10 years, Dinner Short, 20 years, King Street Cycles, 20 years, Loop Clothing, 20 years, Cowboys and Angels, 25 years, Urban Corner, 25 years, Ethel's Lounge, 30 years, Wordsworth Bookstore, 40 years. So this is a clear reflection of, obviously, these business owners, their innovation, their perseverance, because they went through LRT and then they went through the pandemic, and also the community support. And as the word local, right, this is what the BIA represents. Our mandate from day one, since 1972, we represent local, we promote local, we do everything locally to bring people to Uptown. And these businesses have been key part of that. And we recognized them at the AGM. We did a huge video celebration with them that our marketing manager, Jane, worked on with one of our local businesses, Arc Media, which was awesome. So talking about attracting new businesses, the Uptown's becoming an evolving, diverse sort of food culture place. It's important when we talk about culture and food. Food is culture for all of us. There were 30 new businesses that opened in 2024. More than 75% of them were food hospitality locations, which is great because when people come up and have a meal, they tend to hang out. They tend to explore. They tend to find out what else is happening, and then they keep coming back. And so that will have a big positive economic effect within our retail businesses and everything, which is amazing. Creating third spaces for visitors to gather. This is becoming more important as our population increases. Huge families are living in small spaces together, so we need to keep creating third spaces for people to come together, gather, and feel that community. So one of the phenomenal things we did last year, after almost 8 years, we were able to shut down part of King Street with the support of city staff, which was amazing. Mayor's Oktoberfest Market. We activated the Bauer Kitchen area, which we haven't done as a BIA in a long term. So we had a Santa there during holiday Winter Wonderland. We activated the heart of Uptown, again a space that was created by city and the BIA working together. So bringing people together in these spaces help people feel the community, feel safe, and it's great because then people just keep coming back. So when we talk about Uptown leadership and growth, I'm not going to go through each and every category afterwards, but waste management solution is one of the biggest priority for us. With diversity in partnership, media mentions and digital engagement, member communication, gift card program, event attendance, hand-in-hand funding, member social, and placemaking. So talk about waste management. One of the things I want to give kudos to CAO Tim Anderson and his office for, and Ron Olmsen as well, helping us out. We have Sunday garbage pickup now. The region doesn't do Sunday garbage pickup, but in the core area, we have Sunday garbage pickup in the summertime because Sundays are busy. When people come up, we don't want to have piles of garbage along King Street, which is not attractive. Cleanliness is key, and as part of that, the contractors are picking up the sidewalk sandy bins, which also helps with festivals when they happen on the weekend from Saturday, Sunday. So we take an approach of how to make our uptown feel vibrant and clean. So we are working with the region, with the city, as a lot of changes are coming with waste management. Myself and Councillor Wright, who is always by my side in helping the BIA and myself, we had gone door to door to businesses to speak about waste management. Diversity in partnership. Our night markets, we moved the location from the upper parking lot to the lower parking lot where it's covered. There was no rain. None of the night markets were canceled. So we had 9 night markets. Over 15,000 people came to the night market. As part of that partnership, we worked with Spectrum. We had a 2S LGBTQ plus market. We had an Afro Vibes festival there. We had a Pokemon card show that we worked with. Jim Bowman was great. His team from the rec center were great. They had over 50 vendors in the adult recreation area, and we had over 1,000 participants come through there. We had a mini kickoff for Caribana and Oktoberfest. Through Spotlight funding, we helped Flamenco Fest and Strummer Fest and Afro Vibes also do activities in the square. We continue to work with the Working Center on the Discovery Program, which is a social worker from Working Center comes to Uptown, walks through Uptown every Wednesday, connecting with community members. This is about Uptown safety. This is about sense of belonging. This is about making connections. I got to know Emmanuel Baptist Church and the Wayside program where they're helping a lot of community, and we've been introducing them. And now I know Mayor McCabe is taking on his task to help them out, which is phenomenal because they are feeding people, they are providing food, they are doing more than that on a regular basis. We work with Waterloo Regional Police Services on Uptown safety on a regular basis. We had our first ever emergency services event in the square in October. That was police services, fire services, and emergency services, where they all brought equipment. Community was able to come in, interact with them, ask questions, which was also a recruitment for all of the services as well. Through the Neighborhood Community Office, we are working with the Neighborhood Association. We are listening to concerns they have about Uptown, what solutions, what things we are doing, and also helping them with events. Because for us as a BIA to thrive, it's important that all of the neighborhood associations in the boundary, all of the neighbors are thinking of coming to Uptown rather than getting in the car and go to some plaza mall. Media mention. We had over 80 plus positive media mentions last year. There's few challenges we dealt with, but we did deal with them. Overall, our increase has been 20% in all platforms. All of the milestone videos across all of the platforms had over 84,000 views, which goes to show how much people appreciate our local businesses and all of the effort and everything they are putting into that. We sold over $135,000 worth of Uptown gift cards. When you talk about local, that's local right there. I want to thank the city staff departments, area leaders, team leaders for keeping local in mind. Sorry, could we go back? I don't know, I pressed there. For purchasing our business cards. A lot of the city departments did, which was amazing. We also had a local manufacturer who purchased $75,000 worth of gift card, which was amazing. I hope that happens again this year because that's significant. We supported over 40 plus businesses. We put away about $50,000 every year as part of the budget so the businesses can apply to enhance their businesses. This is focusing on that local support on a continuous and consistent basis. We held member socials in 3 different businesses, which is something new we started doing so that business owners can interact with each other. And we worked with the city to close Dominion Lane, and we did the King Street Forest as well. Strong voice for Uptown. Last year, we were lucky we had Minister for Small Businesses and Minister for Immigration, Refugee, and Citizenship. They separately came into town. We were able to tour them with certain businesses. We were also able to sit down and talk to them and address some of the issues with some of the business owners. I was able to go to Toronto to be part of a roundtable with the NDP government where they were gathering data and information. There were 6 other BIAs who were involved with it, and that sort of led to them going in front of the province, challenging the provincial government and asking for more support. So we did see the support come through last week and overall for the businesses, which is amazing. We continue to work with Sustainable Waterloo Region, Downtown Kitchener BIA on the whole waste diversion because there are a lot of changes coming through the way, especially in 2026. We meet with the BIA, myself, the chair of the board. We meet with the City of Waterloo's leadership team on a regular basis, which helps us address a lot of common challenges and issues. And so we are moving forward in the right path and making Uptown a vibrant place on a regular basis. I want to thank my team. We just came back from Collingwood from the OBIA conference, and I know I'm lucky as an AD, the BIA, we are lucky, the relationship we have with the city. I know there could be challenges, but from Councillor Wright, Mayor McCabe, the councillors here who are regularly engaged, from Tim Anderson as the CAO, the commissioners, Ron, Philippa, Jim, there are a lot of great staff who helps us, assist us to get stuff done. Sometimes we could be challenging with our requests, understand that, but we appreciate that our intentions are to make the BIA, the Uptown, the best place to be, the local place to be, and continues to be so. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your presentation, and also for all the work that your team is doing to strengthen the Uptown.
Thank you.
And make it such an exciting and vibrant place where people like to be.
Thank you.
Any questions? Mayor McCabe?
Thank you, and thank you, JS, and your team for, as you said, working really close with the city and making Uptown a really vibrant place to be. I'm just curious about, now in this economic uncertainty we're in, and there's this, push, of course, well, we always promote shopping local. Is there anything new or different or changed in your approach, just, with the efforts to make people really understand the importance of shopping local, particularly in this time? And then my other question is, and again, I know there's some economic uncertainty on the horizon, but there are lots of restaurants in Uptown, which is fantastic, and a really wide range. I'm just wondering about other shopping experiences. Is there, are you looking at bringing in other businesses so that people have other places to shop and spend their money after they've had drink
Had all
or
the food.
something to eat.
Yeah, with the first question through you, Chair, to Mayor McCabe, we are working with, there are things we are working with economic developments team. There are things we are working that came through CAO's team as well. So the board also gave a little bit of direction for me and my team. We are going to be possibly looking at a bunch of things such as banners that are going to celebrate local Canadian and national stuff. So we'll be working on that, and we are going to, our continuous focus on the hand-in-hand fund, like the one that we talked about. There was 50,000 that we budget. There's some flexibility if we wanted to help other businesses who have ideas that they want to promote, market, do even a simple task as a sandwich board outside, or if they want to do promotions through flyers and coupons and stuff, because some of the old school marketing is coming back. The other big thing is more events, more free activities and events that are going to bring people into the square, right? Yesterday we had a vintage market, over 1,000 people came through. There were 14 vendors. It could have been a more perfect day in the square. And when those people came in, what I heard from all of the other businesses, a quiet Sunday turned into a busier Sunday for them because folks are then going into all of the different places, right? This coming Saturday is our egg hunt. We are purposefully moving the starting point to the Bava kitchen area because usually it's always in the square. So we are directing visitors to go up there. They are walking down King Street. And we have most number of businesses participating compared to last year. There's 5, 6 more businesses, right? So we are intentionally trying to do that on a regular basis. So folks are coming up, and then that's a reminder. And then when they come up, hopefully the percentage of people going into our businesses are going up and up and up. So yeah, food is culture. It's great to sort of open food places. And for your second question, Mayor McCabe, we are working with the landlords and the developers who are open to working with the BIA and being partners and showcasing the possibilities of Uptown. In the last month, I've done 2 separate walks with possible business owners. I literally spent about an hour and a half walking with them. They had already done the research and information through ECDEV and also the Small Business Center. They wanted to be on the ground to ask questions. So Kesenia from Small Business Center connected me with folks, and I did my due diligence to try to sell Uptown and show possible places, and also connected them with some of the landlords so that they can reach out. So we hope it would be great to have another anchor in Uptown. I'll say that publicly, whether it's Sephora, Alo, Lululemon, something like that would definitely help. Even though it's a retail chain, but we do need to keep in mind when you look at September to April, between Laurier, Waterloo, Conestoga College, there's almost 70,000 students here. So it's just not those 70,000 students. There are friends coming up, there are parents coming up, there are families coming up. If all of those folks come uptown 2 or 3 times a year, that makes a difference, right? And then those 8 months become huge. Yeah, any other addition, one small thing can help us. So.
And thank you also, JS, for your leadership with Wayside. It's and you know, just helping some of the people and working with some of the people who are more vulnerable in our community. It's been really great to work with you on that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Roach.
JS, thank you for this presentation. I really love what you and your team and everybody here, Councillor Wright, what you guys are doing with the BIA. That's fantastic. I really enjoyed the night markets, and I went to, I had some family from out of town, and we went to the Caravana kickoff that night, and my uncle, Charles Roach, is the founder of the original Caravana in Toronto, and their family was there, and they just loved what was going on. You mentioned about food as culture and all that. Has there any thoughts, or maybe you can talk about thoughts or challenges of expanding the BIA, you know, maybe up to, you know, from the original, I guess, geography of the BIA, you know, things have changed a little bit. Look at all the food and culture, you know, up to Hickory Street on King Street, you know, across from Morty's, you know, that area. Is there any thoughts about expanding that? And then also layering on what the mayor had mentioned, you know, bringing in other things other than food and culture. What about, you know, doctor's offices and things like that. Is there any thought of that? Is that part of the purview of the BIA?
Yeah, thank you through the chair, Councillor Roach. Thank you, and it was great to do the Caribana kickoff, which was awesome, and that's our thing, culture. Any gaps we could fill, we are open to it, and we're already working on some great things for this year as well. Adding to that, going back to the expansion, we go from King and Union up to Central. We are almost about 450 members. There have been questions, Councillor Roach, folks from the other side have sat down with me, talked to me about it. It is, as you look at, we are a small team. I provided the opportunity or advice, and I let them know if they want to create a university area BIA, then there's a lot of work to be done. Someone has to take the lead on it and work together. One of the things that just recently happened in Belmont Village, they tried to expand the BIA to go into the Catalyst, but they didn't. I knew business owners personally there where the folks didn't do the due diligence, right? So expanding would create a lot of challenges for Uptown because you are going into University District, yet if the landlords and the business owners come together, and I learned a little bit of this work when I started here, what needs to get done. If they do the work, we could help them, and them creating a university area BIA, I think will be good. I'm sort of creating work for a lot of the city folks here, but I think that would be ideal than expanding, right? Because if we expand, there will be more challenges that it not be ideal. And the part about doctors, Councillor Wright and myself, she brought me into a meeting. There's a young doctor who's trying to do different things. I know Councillor Hanmer is always on this. We have supported KW Chamber of Commerce when they were trying to do doctor recruitment to do events in Uptown, provide gift cards. There's a phenomenal photo of 100 recruits right in front of the heart of the Uptown from last fall. We have approached some of the landlords. There are some intricacies. If space is available, there needs to be some study about transportation, etc. So there's quite a bit of complications there. We are working with certain landlords who have spaces where people have left, if they could be more open to having those filled by medical buildings. So yeah, it will be ongoing. So
Thank you.
thank you.
Yeah, thanks very much. All right, Council, we have a recommendation here, moved by Councillor Wright, seconded by Councillor Rowe. All those in favor? That's carried unanimously. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, we're on to item E, the special service levy. And Council, we're going to take these recommendations one at a time because Councillor Hanmer has a conflict with item 3 and the mayor has a conflict with item 4 because they reside within those areas. So I was going to ask Sandra and the mayor if they want to just kind of stage themselves by the door there, and we're going to take items 3 and 4 first, and then they can vote on their respective items and step out on their non-respective items. We'll start with item 3. Do I have a mover for item 3? Moved by Councillor Rowe and seconded by Councillor Wright. All those in favor? That's carried. And now we'll move on to item 4. Do I have a mover for item 4? Moved by Councillor Rowe, seconded by Councillor Wright. That's carried unanimously. So if you want to join us, then we'll do the rest. I think we'll do the rest of the recommendations as co-joined. So items 1, 2, 5, 6, and 7. Do I have a mover? Moved by Councillor Bodley, seconded by Councillor Hanmer. All those in favor? That is carried unanimously. Thank you very much. We are on to the general tax levy. There is no presentation. Is there any questions for staff? Seeing none, do I have a mover? Moved by Councillor Hanmer, seconded by Councillor Roach. All those in favor? That's carried unanimously. Now we're on to proposed demolition of residential dwelling at 665 Herbsville Road. It's moved by Councillor Bodley, seconded by Counselor Rowe. All those in favor? And that is carried unanimously. Thank you very much. We are now on to item 10, public meetings. This is an informal public meeting to consider item 10A, official plan amendment number 63, zoning bylaw amendment Z 2505, Una Weber Properties Incorporated, 200 Weber Street North. There will be no decisions made today. Council and the public are seeing this application for the first time. Council is looking for feedback from interested parties with respect to this application. Today's comments will be taken into consideration in developing a staff position on this application, and a staff report will be considered by council during a formal public meeting at a future meeting. All property owners within 120 meters of the subject lands and anyone who signs the registry at the back of the room will receive notice of the formal public meeting. Anybody who wants further notice of this application, including the formal public meeting and passage of any bylaw, should sign the appropriate registry, again, as I said, located on the desk at the rear of the council chambers. The planner, John Voss, will now provide a brief overview of the application.
Thank you, Chair Freeman. Good afternoon, Mayor McCabe, members of council, city staff, the public. As noted, this is the informal public meeting for official plan amendment 63 and zone change application Z 2505 for the lands at 200 Weber Street North. I'll start by going over the location of the property overall. So the property is on the east side of Weber Street North, north of Marshall Street and south of University Avenue East, and has an area of approximately 1.1 hectares. To the north is the Waterloo Fire Station number 1. To the west are various commercial uses, including retail, restaurants, and automotive uses. To the south is the House of Friendship within a hotel building. To the east is Village on the Green, the townhouse condominium, as well as the Laurel Creek, which is represented by the blue line on the map. The applicant is proposing to construct a grocery store. The image on the map is a concept plan of the site with 2 driveways along Weber Street, parking in the front and rear yards, and a grocery store in the middle of the property. You'll note a portion of the rear yard closest to Laurel Creek is within the floodway hazard area and will remain undeveloped. This is a rendering I prepared to show a bit of a physical understanding of the massing of the building. The foundation is raised approximately 5 feet to ensure that the first story is above the regulatory flood elevation to manage the risk of flooding during extreme rain events. Offices are proposed on the second floor along the front portion of the building. These are elevation drawings of the front and rear facades of the building. The top image is the front facade, and the bottom image is the rear facade. As noted, the first story has been raised up about 5 feet in order to manage the risk of flooding. Stairs and ramps will provide access from the parking lot to the building entrances. The official plan currently designates the property as commercial, specifically as corridor commercial, which is geared towards auto-oriented uses. The official plan also designates the property as medium high density or 40 meters maximum height. It's a minor corridor, and it's a special policy area floodway. The applicant is proposing to amend the corridor commercial zone, so keeping the designation, the corridor commercial designation, keeping the designation, just adding food store as a contemplated use. I will note that council did approve an update to the official plan in December 2024. That update did not include this property because it's within the special policy area floodway, and these areas were deferred intentionally in order to allow all the other policy changes to proceed without a potential delay caused by provincial approvals. The property is zoned corridor commercial C5-27 and floodplain hazard. This zone permits development up to 27 meters and 9 stories. The applicant is proposing an amendment to permit food store as an allowed use and to reduce the parking from approximately 175 spaces to 175 down to 105. Various reports and studies were provided by the applicant These documents are available at engagewr.ca and are currently being reviewed by city staff, outside agencies, and are available to the public. Moving forward, staff will continue to review the submission and consider the merits of the requested amendments, along with comments from other agencies and the public. We will return to council within a couple of months with a final recommendation. This concludes my presentation, and I'm available to answer any questions from council.
Questions? Councillor Wright.
Thank you, through you, Chair. I'm just wondering if you could comment on what is required in terms of acoustic mitigation or barriers for refrigerated reefer trucks or any other kind of vehicle traffic at the back of the proposed development. And the reason I'm asking is because we have other grocery stores that are located adjacent to residential properties where that is an ongoing concern. Sometimes it's the HVAC systems on the top of the building, sometimes it's the reefer truck activity and late night deliveries. So taking into consideration that Village on the Green has been there for a very long time, I'm just curious what our mitigating requirements would be.
For sure. Through Chair Freeman to Councillor Wright, the applicant did submit a noise report which details mitigation measures to address the predicted noise impacts. They identified those impacts being rooftop units, as well as the delivery area at the back of the building, which is outlined in red on this image. That noise report is being reviewed by an outside consultant to make sure it's accurately representing the situation. The report did include recommendations such as limiting the time of day when deliveries could occur and other mitigation measures. We'll include additional information as to how this is being mitigated, but we do recognize that there are townhouses to the east that will be potentially impacted by these deliveries.
Other questions? I see Councillor Vasek and Mayor McCabe, so we'll start with Councillor Vasek and then we'll move to Mayor McCabe.
Okay, thanks through you, Chair. Just as an additional point of clarification for what Councillor Wright was talking about, I believe the noise study also said that recommended requiring an updated assessment for the noise as a condition of approval. So there will be not just a review of what's here, but an additional assessment. Is that correct?
That's correct. Through Chair Freeman to Councillor Vasek. At this point in the process, it's zoning and policy related. Later, when they get to detailed site plan review, that's when they'll know the actual details of the HVAC units, for example, and then we'll be able to make sure that the noise study is updated at that point to reflect the final development proposal.
Great, thank you. And given this is in the floodplain, but there's also lots of interest in building housing above these kinds of stores, like many in the area. You can think of Weber and Bridgeport, where they're the Sobeys and the Walmart. So many people ask me, why don't we just build housing on top of that? So, but given this is in the floodplain, is that in any way possible here?
It would be very, very difficult, if not impossible, to build residential on this property, primarily due to the flood risk concerns.
Okay, thanks. And a couple other, I can just ask 3 questions, I guess, and then we can move on, and then I can go back if they haven't been responded to. Is it possible, given this is a flood conservation area at the back, is it possible at all to put in access for Village on the Green residents to this site to walk or bike because it's such a close location?
Through Chair Freeman, that is a possibility that could be explored with consultation with the adjacent property. The Village on the Green may have other comments on how they want to manage that, but that'll be a detailed site plan sort of related comment that we can address later.
Perfect. Okay, I'll reserve the rest of my questions until Mayor McCabe or others go.
Oh, no, please finish. Yeah, please finish your questions and then we'll move on to, yeah, please.
Oh, okay. Yes, I've seen that Village on the Green has reached out with some comments, which may be different from what I have asked for, and maybe different from what they want. They've asked for a fence and an opaque one, and assistance with blowing garbage. That's already a problem there, and they anticipate that it may be more of a problem given it's a grocery store, and there's going to be many trucks loading and unloading. So how might these concerns be addressed?
through Chair Freeman. We have received comments from about half a dozen people in the public so far, including from the condominium board for the Village on the Green. As noted, one of their concerns was the separation between these properties and whether there should be a large opaque fence to provide security and delineation between the developments. Those level of details will be addressed more through a site plan level, but if there are details that we could capture through a council recommendation, that might be something we'll be looking at as well. But we're open to all these high-level discussions now, just so we can make sure that they can be captured later.
Yes, super, thank you for that, that's a good point. So there are requested parking reductions for what's permitted there. And another comment that came in requesting further parking reductions and an increase in bicycle parking. And the rationale for the further parking reductions is given it's on a GRT route. It's a relatively high density area and it will be increasing in density in the area. And so I'm curious if you feel like the parking reductions that are there now are appropriate or if further ones should be considered.
Through Councillor Freeman, this is a request that's before us. We're reviewing to make sure this rate is appropriate and whether further reductions may actually be even better. A parking study was not provided as part of this, but Transportation Services has a well understanding of parking demands and concerns in this area. And so they'll be providing some comments at that time. The rate that was requested at 2.4 spaces per 100 square meters is slightly lower than what they're showing on the plan. They're actually providing a bit of additional parking, which gives them a bit of flexibility as they get to detailed design. They can shift things around a little bit.
Okay, super. And one more question about the office space. And given at one point we knew that we needed more office space, but now we also know that more people are working from home. So I just wanted to know if the office space is going to be needed in the community or if we should be requesting something else or suggesting something else.
Through Chair Freeman, the office space would technically be permitted to include a range of other uses as well, medical offices, for example. The designation and the zoning do permit a bit of a broader range of uses, and so there is some flexibility in that. The market study that was prepared as part of the official plan update did show that there's a long-term demand, but permitting the uses that are there today is something that the developer has taken advantage of in their request of what they're proposing. So there may be opportunities to adjust that slightly if they decide that there's more uses that they're interested in pursuing.
Super, thanks, that's it for me.
Great. Were your questions answered, Member Kip? Okay, so I had a few questions. Sorry, was there someone else? Again, they're site plan related. And I realize that I don't know whether council wants to give direction to site plan at a formal public meeting, but my questions are site plan related. And they've mainly come out of other similar food stores that back on to residential uses. So one of them is hours of operation. I'm not sure whether there's a sense of what the hours of operation might be.
To you, that is something the applicant may be able to address in their presentation.
Sure. Another one is rear yard lighting and how that spills over into the nearby residential uses. And I know that that has certainly created consternation for others. And snow removal staging. So if the snow removal staging is in the rear yard, the noise that's associated with the operation of snow removal, we know that that happens. And the other piece was around, as silly as this might sound, but, and it might lead into the opaque fencing comment that Councillor Vasic made, but it's shopping carts and how they migrate into green spaces and floodways. So, I know those are all manageable, but I just thought I would put them out there because they really, the public doesn't have an opportunity to see site plan, and so they really look to council to kind of raise these things during informal public meetings. So you don't have to answer them all right now, but I did want to leave those with you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you very much for raising those ones. Some of those will be addressed as part of our official plan or urban design manual already has those as clear details, such as lighting. Other details will be things we'll be looking at as we review the site plan. But I know the applicant is hearing these details as well tonight, and we'll be able to consider that through redesign when they get to that stage. So these are all important conversations to have now.
Yeah, thanks, I appreciate that. Any other questions, council, for Mr. Voss? Okay, we have a delegation, Kristen Baresdale from GSP Group, welcome.
Good evening. Kristen Baresdale from GSP Group. I also want to note that I have Megan David and Brad Cotton here from Weaver Properties. If there are any questions that come up related to the future development of the site, perhaps they can answer them. I should note that they currently have an agreement of sale on the property. So Ethnic Supermarkets, who is intended to be the ultimate occupant of the site, is the one who has put forth the development concepts and the one who's going to be developing the property. So I'm not going to spend much time going over this. John has done quite a great overview of the site. The graphic that you see in front of you right now, for those of you who have been in Waterloo for a long time, remember this as the White Rose site. The air photo that you see right now is the former building. It was recently demolished by Weaver Properties. There were some concerns with regards to safety of the building, as well as having people trespassing and violating the site, so it was removed. I believe it was last summer or the summer before, so the site currently is vacant. Just a quick summary of the broader community context, because I believe it's quite important when providing justification and commentary related to the grocery store, the future supermarket. The two rings that you see, the inner ring is 400 meters around the site, the outer ring is 800 meters around the site. Both of those represent easy or accessible walking distances for residents. As Mr. Voss touched on, the site is surrounded immediately by a number of existing commercial uses, restaurants, retail commercial spaces. The fire hall is directly to the north, House of Friendship is directly to the south. And then you see in the broader community context, there is quite a significant residential neighborhood that is within close walking distance to the proposed development. In addition, it's proximate to the Conestoga College campus on University Avenue, and we're just about a kilometer to the east of Laurier campus. And then finally, what you'll see in the yellow is the denotes or marks the existing Grand River Transit routes, as touched on by one of the councillors. There are existing routes that are along Weber Street as well as University Avenue, again, all within a couple of minutes of walk to the site. As Mr. Voss touched on, the proposed development includes a food store and second-story commercial uses. The food store is intended to be approximately 35,000 square feet in size. As I noted, it is intended to be Ethnic Supermarket. If you do a Google search, Ethnic Supermarket is a chain that exists in Milton and Guelph. So this is an existing provider who has experience providing a food store. As you were discussing or talking, I looked up. Their existing operations are 9 till 9 at their Milton and Guelph location. I would expect a similar hours of operation at this location. And then as Mr. Voss touched on, the intent is to provide for second-story office space. The concept has been prepared to provide for that development potential. Office space is currently permitted on the site under the existing designation and zoning. However, to demonstrate or justify the proposed development and the reduced parking, the concept we've prepared in front of you includes that office space. Ultimately, may be determined that that office space is not to be built, but we're trying to make sure that we're capturing the appropriate parking requirements as well as any other zoning regulation changes that may be required at this time. Again, this is the west elevation on the top of the screen. So this is the elevation that you will see coming along Weber Street, and then the east elevation you'll see at the rear of the property, and you'll note the loading spaces as part of the east elevation. This graphic depicts the grade change or the raised elevation of the foundation that Mr. Voss spoke of. That is an intentional design of this site. There are some pretty significant technical requirements with regards to flooding, flood elevations. To answer another question that came up with regards to residential uses. Yes, it's quite difficult to introduce residential uses on this site. There are different standards with regards to safety or safe egress of a site in a flooding condition for a commercial use versus a residential use. Even though the site has been designed to accommodate some flooding, it is quite extensive when you look at it, the raised foundation. It would have to be that much larger if we were proposing residential uses on the site. So while I'm sure there would be some technical feasibility to do it, it's probably out of the reach of providing for residential uses as part of this proposed development. And then as Mr. Voss touched on, this is just a floor plan that was submitted with the application. What you'll see on the left-hand side is the food store. You'll see the tellers or checkout areas at the rear of the property. You'll see the loading areas to the top right-hand corner of the screen. The area that you see in red, the larger hatched area, is the intended area that's going to be occupied by potential future office. And then there's also an outdoor patio and community or common amenity space for those office tenants. You'll see in the smaller hatched area to the rear of the second story. The application that we've submitted to the city, as Mr. Voss touched on, is to essentially maintain the existing corridor commercial designation, but add a permission for the food store. This is a rather unique circumstance. As part of the most recent official plan amendment that was endorsed or approved by council in December, food stores have actually been added as a permitted use to all other corridor commercial designations. But because of the special policy area associated with the Laurel Creek floodway, we are required to actually change that area. The way the policy is written and the direction from the ministry is any changes to that policy, including adding a use, requires involvement from both the Ministry of Natural Resources as well as the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing. So that's why we've got the application in front of you. We're essentially asking to bring forward permissions that have already been established citywide on this site. And then similarly with the existing, the proposed zoning bylaw amendment, we're proposing to maintain the existing corridor commercial zone, add the food store as a permitted use, and then as Mr. Voss touched on, asking or seeking a reduced parking rate for the future development of the site. That finishes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you, Council. Any additional questions? Seeing none, I think we exercised our questions and we'll leave those with you.
Thank you.
And Mr. Voss to follow up on. So, oh, sure.
Just
Ma'am,
a really-
Is it for Kristen or
Yeah.
for John? Yeah,
No, it's
okay.
just really quick, because I think I saw stairs in there, in the design. I'm not sure. I'm just, for accessibility, I'm just, wondering if it's possible to design it without stairs. They just add barriers, and, even for snow removal, it's easier with a ramp. Just a really small thing for me, but just leave that for you to consider.
Through you, Ms. Chair, there is actually, if you look at the graphic, there is intended to be stairs as well as ramps. So if you see the graphic, there's a slight gray area that moves down. That's intended to be a ramp with a glass railing. So there will be barrier-free access as a ramp as well as stairs.
Yeah, I just wondered why you need them, why you just don't have why you need stairs. But it's really in the weeds, so.
Okay. All right, we'll leave those comments with you then. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone, right, we've already asked if council had questions. Is there any delegations, is there anyone present tonight who wishes to speak to this application? Seeing none. If there's no more delegations, this informal public meeting is now concluded. Staff will review the issues and provide further reporting to council at a later date. So thank you very much. We are now moving on to item 11, consideration of notice of motion given at a previous meeting. Councillor Wright's motion is presented here. Do we need to read the motion out?
I don't think so, but I'd be happy to make a couple of comments first.
Did you want to make them before the delegations?
I can make them after.
Okay,
That's fine.
that would be great.
Yeah.
So we have, our first delegation on this matter is Danny Lindemood. Welcome from Water Watchers.
Chair, and with gratitude to Mayor and Council for having the opportunity to speak today. My name is Danny Lindemood, and I am the Campaigns and Communications Director with Water Watchers. We're a local environmental nonprofit who does water protection, climate justice, and Indigenous solidarity work. And I am so pleased to get to be here with you today to delegate in support of the motion before Council to support the need for provincial action on salt pollution from road salt. I want to begin by talking a little bit about the problem of salt pollution in general. I'll also connect these points to what the impacts of salt pollution actually look like here in Waterloo and why this motion is a really simple way to usher in the solutions that we all need across the province to stop salt pollution. So just digging into the problem a little bit. Ontario freshwater ecosystems and drinking water sources are facing growing, dangerous, and chronic salt pollution across the province. Ontario is Canada's #1 user of winter salt, dumping approximately 2 to 3 million tons of salt each winter. This accounts for about half or 50% of all the winter salt used across the country. So this is really an Ontario problem and an Ontario issue. Road salt has been a known toxic substance designated under the Canadian Environmental Protection Act because of tangible threats, including serious and irreversible environmental and public health concerns, and it's been designated since the 1990s. So it has a long history of being known as an issue. And other impacts include impacts to critical public infrastructure like roads, bridges, and buildings, as well as private property like cars, clothes, and pets, and it's also a concern there. So currently, there are no provincial policies or regulations for road salt, including no salt use standards, no required contractor trainings for handling or distributing this toxic substance, no enforcement mechanisms to ensure that it's used properly, and no protections against the salt pollution of freshwater ecosystems or drinking water sources. And this policy void has created liability issues for the snow and ice management sector, which you'll hear about likely in more detail from my colleague Joe Salemi of Landscape Ontario, who's also here to delegate to you today. But one of the more egregious impacts of this policy void, in my opinion, is the way that it's left municipalities out in the cold to deal with the salt pollution issues locally without the supportive policy that they actually need to be significantly more effective in these efforts. So when we look to the water herself, the impacts of this policy void are also just heart-wrenching. Salt pollution never leaves a water system. It just dissolves and changes the water quality and infiltrates into the soils. As you can imagine, many freshwater creatures can't survive or thrive under these conditions, and the federal water quality maximum guidelines to protect aquatic life from chronic chloride exposure are about 120 milligrams of chloride per liter of water. The science has shown that there are many species and watersheds where maximum levels of 20 milligrams rather than 120 would actually be more appropriate given the sensitivity of those species. But in the Grand River, we've seen levels consistently over 100 milligrams per liter at sites monitored by the Ministry of Environment, Conservation, and Parks. So it's the province's own data that is illustrating just how dire the need is for change, and that's actually echoed right here in the scholarship coming out of the University of Waterloo and the Water Institute as well. Salt is also finding its way into groundwater and surface water that's used as drinking water sources, which is extremely expensive to mitigate when it's possible. And this is an issue that Waterloo Council and staff are keenly aware of, and you all have been leaders in this space working hard to prevent these impacts from worsening. And I just want to take a second to applaud you for that leadership and applaud the staff that have driven that as well. But the salt continues to be laid at egregious rates, and the efficacy of local efforts to protect drinking water would be drastically improved by supportive provincial policy. And last but not least, I'd like to remind the council that this motion before you is not coming in isolation, but as the motion notes, itself that it's the result of numerous situation analyses and policy inquiries over decades, all of which have recommended salt pollution solutions involving liability protection, contractor certification, government-approved best management practices, salt management plans, and exploration of alternatives or alternative standards that negate the need for salt altogether. And in this way, the motion is stewarding forward decades of information affirming the need for provincial action on salt pollution, which is why we've seen other cities passing these motions and have dozens of others considering them soon. So, but tonight it's our turn here in Waterloo to affirm the solutions that we need to address the direct and indirect impacts of salt pollution, and that those must begin with provincial policy. And that's why I'm asking you to vote in favor of this motion to urge the province of Ontario to uptake action on the salt pollution issue so the waters here and everywhere across the province can have a better chance at supporting life into the future. Thank you so much for your time this evening, and I hope to see you vote in favor of this motion, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much for your delegation. Any questions for the delegate? Seeing none, thank you so much. And we have one more delegation on this matter. It's Joe Salimi, the Executive Director of Landscape Ontario. Welcome, Joe.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me. Really, it's a privilege to be able to have the opportunity to speak with you this afternoon, and also to be able to introduce our organization, Landscape Ontario, and our efforts to protect the environment and enhance safety within the province. Landscape Ontario is the province's premier horticultural trades association, representing 10 sector groups across the province to address our specific industry needs. There's no one else in Canada that represents snow and ice contractors. So why does a landscape association represent private snow contractors? Well, considering more than a third of our membership also do snow and ice services in the winter, we felt like we had to step up and be that organization. There is an organization in the United States, the Snow and Ice Management Association, and we work directly with them, and we're working on a national best management practice standard for private contractor snow and ice practice. So something to look forward to. So we work with snow and ice contractors, salt suppliers, equipment manufacturers, municipal managers, commercial and multi-residential property managers and owners to educate and advocate on topics such as the importance of the Smart About Salt accreditation, which is based on the data provided through the University of Waterloo and developed right here in the city. The snow and ice management sector in Ontario represents nearly 8,000 small businesses that employ a massive workforce in every region of Ontario, and that provide an essential public service that allows people to live their lives, to get to work, to attend school, and to access emergency services when needed. Our membership includes over 200 businesses that operate right here in the city of Waterloo. As snow and ice contractors, we're faced with the professional objectives of safety and environmental protection that are in direct conflict with each other, and reform of the legislative system is urgently needed. Snow and ice contractors feel pressured to use high amounts of salt due to liability concerns. This leads to contractors bearing the bulk of legal responsibility and increased use of precautionary salt as a result. They do it because they're afraid to get sued. At the same time, sky-high insurance costs and shrinking pool of insurers to provide coverage for the trade have pushed people out of the industry. Prior to the pandemic, we estimate that there was over 10,000 private snow and ice contractors in the province. Landscape Ontario has been advocating for legislative reform needed to benefit the environment, reduce the high insurance costs, and attract more people. And we've been doing that for well over 4 years now. Thank you to a private members bill in 2021, we were able to reduce the statute of limitations for slip and fall notifications from 2 years to 60 days. And that has helped marginally, but there's a massive loophole that we still need to close. There's a very real danger that the declining number of snow and ice contractors that will result in a critical lack of service for many municipalities and organizations next winter unless there's real legislative reform. We could achieve safe conditions and use less salt if we could use best snow and ice management practices. But the reality is, property owners and managers request snow contractors to use more salt. Although through a balanced distribution of liability between contractors and property owners, we know that we can work together to reduce the amount of salt being used. Like my colleague Danny had mentioned, Environment Canada has deemed salt as a hazardous substance and provides special dispensation for use on roads, sidewalks, and parking lots. Excessive road salt use has a negative impact on the environment, and we can all point to an article that shows saltwater crabs living in Mimico Creek because of the salt runoff. But liability risk is preventing the reduction in that salt use. Property owners demand oversalting to avoid slip and fall risks, and doing so, they pass along the responsibility really for any liability, as well as ecological damage, infrastructure damage to snow and ice, all to the snow and ice contractors. Imagine at a big box store, in between the two doors that you're walking through the main entrance, if there's a slip and fall, it's the responsibility of the snow and ice contractor inside the facility. Unfortunately, oversalting is the direct result of working within a system that does not involve proper site risk-specific analysis and clear levels of service through risk analysis and established policies. After several mild winters, the huge increase in major snow events this season has highlighted a critical importance for having properly trained snow removal contractors in sufficient numbers. I know that everyone here in Waterloo will appreciate the importance of having sufficient snow removal equipment, materials, and people to do that work after our experiences with multiple back-to-back significant snow events this year. The combination of increased number of snow events and oversalting have had another effect this year. It brought on a widespread road salt shortage, of which I think I did over 15 television, radio, and media interviews to talk about that in particular. Mandating lower salt use in public highways and roadways is not enough to address the salt-related environmental damage. Parking lots and roadways are a major contributor to the problem. It involves private roads, highways, and parking lots. All have a responsibility which needs to be shared. We have developed a professional training program and accreditation for private snow contractors that ensure an ideal balance between safety, environmental protection, and salt usage. We're working with the Snow and Ice Management Association, like I mentioned, to create that national standard. We believe that a regulated snow and ice management system supported by a legal framework, yeah, I said an industry needs to be regulated, and we're volunteering to do so, as recommended, will provide owners and site managers and snow contractors with a system that improves the unstable insurance environment while concurrently creating balance between acceptable risk and protection of the environment. We propose that all snow and ice contractors go through that training and accreditation and receive limited liability protection. So they go through the training, they become accredited, they do the work that they say they're going to do as part of the contract, and they're held without liability. So that's what we're working towards. This will help with consumer protection, retention of employees, both major issues. Similar programs have been successfully established in northern United States. Our biggest model is the state of New Hampshire with their Green Snow Pro program. We've been working with our members, environmental advocacy groups, and scientists, and believe that we can create a fair system that will allow snow and ice contractors to enhance safety while protecting the environment. We're very proud to have received the 2024 Lake Simcoe Region Conservation Authority Distinguished Achievement Award as a result of our advocacy to reduce salt usage. The key to reducing salt usage is limited liability protections and reduced insurance costs. Over the past several months, we've been meeting with several ministries, including the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks, and the Ministry of Attorney General, and the Premier's Office, to actively advocate for that legislative change that's much needed to create a more balanced distribution of liability between contractors and property owners. I'm thrilled to see the City of Waterloo consider this evening's motion to support the need for provincial action. It's exactly what we need and exactly the kind of help that we need to seek reform for the current liability system and create a regulatory framework. I hope that you'll join other municipalities such as the District of Muskoka, the Town of Georgina, that support this motion. Other municipalities like the City of Barrie and the City of Hamilton are preparing similar motions for presentation to Council very soon. Our snow and ice services are essential for all Ontarians, and we employ a massive workforce that works 24/7 during snow events to provide safety for everyone in all parts of the province, and especially important for seniors and those with accessibility issues. Thank you for your time, and I welcome any questions.
It was amazingly on time. Thank you. Any questions for the delegate council? Thank you very kindly. And you certainly raise some points around liability, and certainly municipalities have also been speaking to the liability aspects and joint and severable liability, at least for 20 years since I've sat at this seat. So thank you again. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Now I'm going to move over to Councillor Wright. I wonder, did you want to move your motion and then provide comment?
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. So I'd like to move this resolution. The timing is somewhat intentional here. We're about halfway between World Water Day, which was March 22nd, and Earth Day, which is April 22nd. And so we find ourselves right at the bridge of land and water. And this is where the problem is occurring. So as you've heard, we have this overarching provincial issue with salination of our waterways. And I think there's a particular opportunity for Waterloo, I mean, we even have water in the name of our city, to continue to show leadership, especially for this region. So the Smart About Salt program originated here. It's already included in our risk management plan for parking lots that we approved on March 3rd. So we're already doing this work. We're an example of a municipality that has really taken this very seriously, but it is an all-of-society solution that's required. It's going to take some technological innovation. It's going to require more research. There might be future alternatives to salt. Better training is one of these factors that is going to open up a pathway. And so sometimes you have to dig a little deeper to look at what the drivers are for a specific issue, and I think we've hit on something here, between Danny's presentation and Joe's presentation to show that these indemnity clauses really are exacerbating a known issue. It makes it difficult for small businesses to work effectively if they don't have access to the training and to the expectations, standards, regulation that really create an effective industry where people are doing their best work. The people who are working in winter control, they also care about the environment, but the risk and liability issues are preventing them from acting in a more environmentally progressive way. So this resolution supports this approach. It's a first step, as I said, in a broader provincial campaign to support the request for limited liability legislation and more rigorous standards for best practice. And I think we can get behind this together as a council because we care about water.
That's great, thank you. Is there a seconder for this recommendation? Well, you have your choice. I'll choose Councillor Hanmer. Is there any other comments that folks would like to make on this matter? Okay, seeing none, all in favor? That's carried unanimously. Thank you very much, and thank you for your leadership on bringing forth that recommendation. Notice of motion given, notice of motion, there's none. Communications and correspondence, none. Unfinished business, none. Questions, council? Seeing none. New business, council? Seeing none. Enactment of bylaws. Councillor Bodley and Councillor Rowe, all in favor. That's carried unanimously. I need a motion to adjourn, please. Moved by Councillor Rowe, seconded by Councillor Vasek, all in favor. Have a very good evening, my friends. That's carried unanimously.